Okay, I'd like to call our regularly scheduled board meeting for Monday, August 8th to order. Roll call.
Mandy Creek here.
Anderson here.
Tronson here.
Williams here.
Van Lannon here, and Barbara Halloran, we're not sure if she's going to make it or not. Okay, we have a declaration. We have the quorum. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we adopt the agenda, I want to make a move of, it would be action item K3, which is actually a discussion item, to J1, and then move J1 after K4.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we have an announcement of executive session in accordance with Wisconsin 19.851-C. An executive session will be held at the end of the meeting for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governing body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Citizens and delegations, or anybody that has anything to speak of that is not on the agenda. Big crowd? Nobody? Okay. We will move on to bright lights.
Good evening. Tonight's Bright Lights is going to be presented by the teacher of the summer school program called the Special Children's Program. This has been in collaboration with the Ashwaubenon School District and Ashwaubenon Park and Rec Department. We cover the staffing for this program, and then the fees that parents pay cover transportation and all of the activities that they do throughout the summer. So I am going to turn it over to April, the teacher of the Special Children's Program.
Good evening. My name is April Rogalski. I'm the teacher of the program along with my sister Susie Rogalski. And I've been teaching the program for 11 years, and my sister has been for 8 years. We're actually housed out of Parkview Middle School. The program has been in operation actually since August of 1979. It was founded by Terry D. Way. This 8-week program serves children and young adults ages 3 to 21. The program caters to children, teens, and young adults who have a wide variety of mild and severe disabilities, such as Asperger's syndrome, autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, visually impaired, spina bifida, Fragile X, and intellectual disabilities. The program offers 2 sessions and provides transportation. It also offers activities regardless of their skill level. Activities include swimming, indoor-outdoor games, movies, field trips to petting zoos, carnivals, Bay Beach, strawberry picking, and much, much more, as well as arts and crafts. The program operates Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. It incorporates a curriculum of life skills, social skills, language skills, including sign language, music, and movement. And let me tell you, a lot of movement. If you've seen us in the community in our bright shirts, we are moving. We're out and about in the community, that's for sure. We are always on the go. Summer activities are modified so that all children of all abilities may participate. Students are paired up with teacher assistants. I currently have 4. The program also includes following IEP goals throughout the summer. I really believe it's one of the many, or one of a wonderful thing that Ashwaubenon actually can provide with our students with disabilities. Our summer school mission is providing students with disabilities opportunities in the community. And our motto, as you can see, is fun in the sun. And we definitely are always on the go, and we're very, very active in the community. So I'm just very thankful that Ashwaubenon has such a program for students with disabilities. Susie, my sister, will come around and kind of just show some of the our poster board of the activities that we've been doing. And I'm going to we have 4 sets of parents here tonight to speak on the benefits that our program, or your program, provides to their children in the community. And I'll start with Stacy.
Hi, my daughter Kate has been part of the program for probably 6 or 7 years. She has Down syndrome. She's 15 and loves it. You know, she likes going to school the rest of the year, but man, when the summer school bus comes, she kicks her into high gear, goes down the driveway. It is a good day. And when April and Susie said about following through the IEP, it's fantastic that she has the ability to be able to be paired one-on-one or two-on-one with an assistant for the day for continuity to work on speaking in sentences. I know that they don't give her an easy ride, and they make her work for things, and I can see it at home. And for us, too, the continuity of knowing that Summer provides this program and being able to be in the same environment and have stability. Change is very difficult for her. She's gone through a rough time the last almost 2 years, and we were able to take her lower on antidepressants this summer because of the stability. So that's what I have to say about the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now he's going to be shy. Don't let him pull you out. This is my son, Matthew. He is 7. He started the program actually the summer he turned 3. You can go back. When he started, he actually was still in his wheelchair, wasn't walking yet, starting to walk. Still had his regular therapies. He actually wasn't talking very well. He was still with speech therapy. And that summer, he started talking, and he hasn't shut up since until now. And very, very independent. They've been very, very good about promoting independence and pushing the walking. And now he walks around even without his crutches, even though he's not supposed to be. But he's just done a lot of things in promoting the independence, and he loves his summer program. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Al. I'm here with my wife, Julie. We adopted our son, Christopher, 4 years ago, and only found out about this program last year through Allison Averbeck at Valley View, and this program has been a godsend for us. Christopher is on the autism spectrum and does very well during the school year with structure, but then in the summer, he still requires a lot of structure and activities like that, and it makes it very difficult at home if he doesn't have that. The program has worked out just fantastically for us because he's able to do these activities, get out in the community. As they talk about social skills, we saw a huge improvement, and not only us, but even prior teachers and family members who would see Chris after this program and comment on how much more communicative he was after that program. And we credit April and Susie and the rest of the staff for that, because really that has been just a huge improvement for us. I can't say enough about the program. I wish that we had known about it sooner, because he could have participated even for a couple of years, 2 years prior to that. So we plan to continue for as long as we can. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tony Stefik. My wife, Missy, is at home with Joey, our 4-year-old, and Emma, our 1-year-old. And we moved to Ashwaubenon 2 years ago now, simply because we found a house that would accommodate Joey's needs. He has spina bifida. He's 4. He uses a wheelchair as his primary mode of transportation. And so once we got here, we started figuring out some of the benefits that your community had to offer to folks like us, and the camp is one of them. Joey, one of our goals with Joey was to have him exposed to at daycare, he's primarily with kids who don't have disabilities, but we wanted him to gain some exposure to other kids that also had disabilities, simply to teach him from a young age that everybody's different and everybody's okay. And the camp has given us the opportunity to do that. That little man has had the opportunity to do so much stuff through the camp that with both my wife and I working full-time, we just wouldn't have the time for him to go do. And every day he comes home and sleeps like a rock because he is all over the board. So it's been a great thing for Joey. It's been a great thing for us. And I have to emphasize to you all, the gifts that April and Susie and their team are to your school district. They do such a wonderful job with all of these kids, and every day I can only imagine with the wide range of issues that all the kids are all dealing with, that they have such unbelievably great patience and care and kindness for all of our kids. They're truly a blessing, and we all, regardless of whether we have kids in the program or not, should be happy that the district has it and that it keeps going and it's going real strong. So we appreciate it so much. We thank you for the opportunity. We thank the village as well. And with that, I'll turn it back over.
Does anyone have any questions at this time?
Just a couple comments. I know that my daughters have helped out in your program for a couple of years, doing swimming and going to B Beach, and they really enjoyed it. And they talk about it often, that the experience that they had there. And I know that this program has been going on since 1979, and you guys have carried on that tradition. Just wanted to say thank you. Rex, do you have anything that you want to say?
I'm good.
You sure?
Okay.
What kind of activities do you actually do in the community?
Activities, just getting them immersed in the community. I mean,
Right.
we're talking from going to the mall shopping. We're so exposed, just having those social skills, those life skills, how to talk, to be talking appropriately. We go to concert in the park. We're unfortunately not this year or last year. We were because of the construction and so forth. But it's really great for our sponsors on the back of our T-shirts to see us out in the community, especially concert in the park. If we're at Bay Beach. Like I said, we've gone to extremes of we're taking wheelchairs down, cherry picking down the lanes. I mean, it's a little rough terrain ride, but we're doing it all. And again, swimming both at the Ashwaubenon Park. Today we went to Rush Aquatic Center, and so we're really our little walks, even to the library, the Brown County Library right here. I mean, our field trips can be grandiose, like going to the Rush Aquatic, or just simply we're going to take them out to eat at Qdoba. And everyone knows, even our Target shopping, we have a special cashier that we actually go through his line. He looks forward to seeing us every Monday, getting our supplies. So we're definitely making an impact in our community. So thanks again. Yeah.
How do you handle transportation
That is provided, our transport, through Lamers.
through Lamers?
Yes, so that is one of a really great, huge benefit.
Paid through our sponsorship.
Yes, it's all paid through our sponsorships. Mhm.
April, can you touch on the sponsorships? I didn't touch on that, or would you like me to touch on that?
You could go ahead, I mean,
Something that's really unique, the Special Children's Program is run by a parent board. So although Rex and I both provide some funding for it, it mainly is provided by the parents who registered their children and then by the parents seeking sponsorships. So they have a number of sponsors. If you want to turn, they can see. Yeah, it's on the back of the shirt. And they get sponsorships from anywhere from a couple $100 to $1,000 to $2,000. And a lot of these sponsors give money every single year, which is just absolutely amazing because it really does help these kids be able to get out and do different activities. And it's not like they do one activity a week, it's every day they're doing something. They are out, they're just, they're
when
all
I
over
first
the place.
started the program 11 years ago, we were doing one field trip a week, and I was just encouraged by parents, no, we want them out more. We said, my sister came on board, and I said, okay, that's what we're going to do. And you're right, we're out every day, even if it's a morning walk, but we're doing something every day. And we also include arts and crafts. So there's a theme of the week, and which is we try to get it together with field trips and then some arts and crafts and some baking as well. So we're cooking something. So.
10 field trips in June and July because I just paid the busing bill for those two. We're waiting for August yet because there's still field trips for August.
So, any other questions? Yes.
Just give me that. What does it cost?
This is really amazing. The price for a student's tuition for the 8-week program, Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., $250. So we're driven off of by our sponsorships. And then last year, my sister and I, we just wanted to go the extra mile. We didn't want to give them any limitations as far as the more expensive field trips. So we actually held a fundraiser, a motorcycle fundraiser at Plank Road Pub and Grill, where we were able to, we our goal was 3,000, we ended up with 2,800. And so that all just went back into our teacher fund. So we don't want to have too many limitations, but we wanted to make some extra money, so that's where we get a lot of our funding.
That's really
Just
great.
want to say thank you to April and Susie and to the parents that were able to be here tonight. You know, if you're following what we're trying to do at the middle school and high school level with summer school, we realize the value of really more year-long learning. And that's a complicated total program to pull off. A lot of districts in the state and the nation study it, and they look at the pros and cons, and there is a lot that goes into a decision like that for a school district to go totally year-long as far as learning. But this is a great example of how you found a way to extend learning. We're continuing to look at the middle school and high school offerings to do the same in the summer. So hats off to you and the passion. How many years have the two of you put into this?
I have 11, my sister has 8.
Outstanding.
So, and we love it. I mean, we really look forward to it. Our staff is really strong. I mean, I have staff staying for 9 years. I have staff staying for 5 years. Even after our teacher assistants become teachers, they still come back to, and it's not a very high-paying job for those who already got their, but there's a passion and a love for it. It goes to tell you a lot about the program. You're talking about compensation, and I lost one this year only because she started a family, and she was with me for 9 years. And I have current staff right now 4 or 5 years, so they're staying, and we really are a really great team. So.
Well, and thank you to Rex and the Village. Again, another example of a project where the school and village work together, and then the community comes forward to fund these things. Hats off. Very nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I make one quick comment? I don't know what kind of, and I don't want to call it recognition, but, you know, I think of how many people in the community don't realize what this program is and how it goes and how funding is so important to you. And I don't know from a publicity, not that you're looking for publicity, but have you looked into maybe an article in a local newspaper or anything like that
I haven't.
to support the sponsors that you have?
He invited all the sponsors to the individual party and the Ashwaubenon Press.
Okay.
So Ashwaubenon,
Did they
yeah.
publish something?
The
Did they-
Ashwaubenon Press usually
Do
publishes
they?
something
Okay,
every
good.
year.
Yeah.
There are
Good.
pictures in there.
I was gonna say, if they haven't, you know, please go to them again
No.
and see if you can, to get the recognition for your sponsors,
Mhm.
for one. So, that's great.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
We're going to go through the consent agenda, and we'll need an approval on. And that would include minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting held Monday, July 25th. Schedule of checks written 7/19 through 8/1. Staffing, teaching staff, new hire of Charlie Peterson, full-time art instructor at Valley View. The support staff, we have one new hire of Brenda Pavic, a half-time ed associate clerk position at Cormier School. We have the resignation of Abigail Jacobson from her part-time ed associate library aide position at Valley View. I think that's it.
You look for a motion?
Yes, please.
I so move to approve the consent agenda as stated.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on to superintendent's report.
Okay, I listed the building project update first. I don't know if you've been around the facility in the last 2 weeks. We now have blacktop. We have sound modules that were mounted on the side of the auditorium instead of just the ceiling. About a third of those are mounted. They put the glass wall up between the swimming pool and the
the warm water pool area. There's a lot of paint. Everything just continues to be right in the hopper, right on schedule. And we're encouraged that our November 10th date still everything holds. So we're brainstorming, Jay and I, the idea of having a board meeting either at the community center or over there. So we'll keep you posted on maybe doing that, maybe doing a tour or
Absolutely.
connecting a tour so everybody can see that.
Yeah, that'd be
I
great.
have the September board meeting scheduled at the community center.
Okay.
September one is?
September.
And then we do the October one at the auditorium. Yep.
In November in the pool.
If you so choose.
A floating board meeting.
A floating board meeting, that could be the first.
There you go. The next item I listed is just an update on the Performing Arts Center manager position. We had about a 2.5-hour meeting this afternoon to continue discussions about the job description and looking at that whole position. What I guess I'm sort of seeking tonight is just your verbal okay. The village board meets next on August 23rd. The proposal is to share a position 50-50 between the village and the school board. And you have a draft job description in front of you. We're looking at a position that would be a full-time position and really just seeking your approval. The village board approves the job description, which will be similar to this. There will be some tweakers in there. We're trying to hire somebody with some experience because of the magnitude of the facility and where we see this going in the future. There's a lot of high-cost equipment there. We want it to be well taken care of, obviously, so to do this right. And then we're also investigating a lot of details. There's a whole lot to this, but you know, even the details of what system you go with for ticketing and how you promote and market and advertise for community programming and community theater. Obviously, the school district events will take a priority in there, and how much the other schools besides the high school will use that facility. All of those logistics become a performing a manager's position. Also, safety and security policies will be put together. There will be contracts that will have to be drawn up and utilized as we entertain outside groups for performances. So a whole lot goes with that. We're going to try to hire somebody, obviously, within the market at a competitive rate within the market. I think that's somewhere in the neighborhood of $75,000 in the area of, when you look at the benefits. That's an estimate right now, but that's something we're still investigating. We're getting more job descriptions, and I'm trying to get a comparable of that position compared to like an Oconomowoc or Oconto Falls has one, Sun Prairie has a facility like that. The unique thing for us, which is really, I think, kind of neat, is that ours will be shared with the village again. So Oconomowoc's position is a full-time person that works for just the school district, where it's a joint venture for us. So I think it changes it a little bit. As far as the ability to actually pay for that by approving our, running this, obviously, and adjusting our Fund 80, that's how financially we have the ability to do this with this year's budget. On the village side of financing it, they would be able to start paying January 1st. The village approves this, obviously. So what would happen is we would just make the agreement that at the end of the year, at the end of the day, both entities would be paying for 50-50. Initially, we'd probably pay a little more until January 1st if you're following this. But at the end of the day, it would be a joint, shared position, much like what we do with the in the swimming area. Person right now, that this is a draft. That person would report to Allison and myself. We were having conversation about that. Nothing is locked in stone there. If you just would want that person to report to one person, we could do that. That's where it's a little bit unique. We don't want it to be cumbersome. But also, ideally, long term, we want to see an actual committee formed in the community that will be recommending, different art performers and more ownership from the community in terms of what this can do to, just augment fine arts in this community. So, I just want to know, do you have any concerns with where we're headed with this? We initially were thinking we'll bring somebody on December 1st. Now we're realizing there is so much to do, because obviously that when the lights go on and the band and the choir and every group wants to perform this school year, all of those systems, those individuals need to be trained on how to run the lighting and the rigging and the sound and all of that. So my hope timeline would be, assuming the village board approves, August 23rd, we post September. Probably will take us a good month. We want to have that out there for 3 weeks or so, 3 or 4 weeks. We interview, and then possibly the person could come on late October or beginning of November. That would give them time to do that. In the meantime, we're having conversations with our own staff, Bernie and Helen, to try to figure out how can we short-term manage that. And the contractor is asking for people names right now because they want to bring somebody on site and train them, because this is all new equipment. We want to do this right. Obviously, we don't want to open this up free rein to anyone and do this in a hodgepodge manner. And so that's really what I'm seeking, is your approval with where we are with this at this time. It's not a formal approval. It's just knowing that you're okay with this, and that obviously the village board will be having the same conversation on the 23rd. The difference there is the job description is going to be tweaked probably a little bit more as we look at other job descriptions. It's a new venture for us. It's important to get that person in place. That person becomes the point guard or the quarterback that will then look at putting together volunteers for ushers, concessions, the whole ticketing process, the whole marketing process, and what that can do to, besides just the school events, again, what this will do for as far as community opportunities.
Looking at this, and I know we've had many conversations and at the steering level committee and, even on the village board and stuff too. A couple of comments that I'll just have on what I saw so far as key working relationships. I don't have a problem with key working relationships being listed like that, but I think that you have to have an overall point person, conductor, if you will, or boss. And I think that the school district should take that. Second thing that I don't know about is, experience. You're looking for 5 years. It's like, holy cats. If you got 5 years of experience running another fine arts facility someplace else, you're going to command a pretty good buck, I think.
I don't disagree. That's a starting point. My push at the meeting today, my personal weigh-in was someone with experience. I think even 1 to 2 years of experience. Just somebody totally new out of school, having to just apply everything that first time. At least 1 to 2 years of experience.
Well, I think what you'll find is they find someone who's been an assistant at a different location that now is ready to take that step to be a manager. So I wouldn't be afraid of that at all.
So that's, those are just, we just got this, I read through it as much as I could, but,
Understandable.
I don't know what everybody else thought.
I'm thinking too. I think it's a good start. I'd like to see some other plans, so we'll see if we can mess those together.
I would agree with Mark that the person needs to have one boss. It's really difficult if you have 2 different bosses that report to totally different groups. And I agree, I think it should belong, it's in our building, it should belong with our school district. And I would encourage move as rapidly as possible, because arguably we're probably behind schedule right now when it comes to closing out that project.
But we still gotta be smart at what we do.
I understand, I'm just saying, but don't wait until the place opens before you hire someone, because you're already behind.
That was our discussion today. The more we talk about this, the more you learn, the more you realize you need to put in place and you need to do. But you're right, you have to do it right.
We just got, right before the meeting, right before I left my work, I've got another email on another draft version of this, if you will. So, there's still stuff coming through.
And that's not to say that the job description, I think you want to get it out there as soon as you can. Try to have the description as complete as possible, but you're going to learn things probably from this person more so than what is even in the description.
Right.
So the sooner you can start talking to people, the better.
Well, Brian, you're just looking for approval in principle right now, right?
That's right. Really, just that.
Not to say that the work is finished, it, continues. Yeah, so.
That's right.
The other question is that, you know, the village board meets on the 23rd, you said? Would it help if, you know, some of the, you know,
They're
school
on board.
boards?
They're on board with it. They're just,
Okay.
the scheduling for funding it is different, like Brian said, for the village. I mean, you don't, our budget at the village goes from January to December, you know, not like June or July to June. So, I mean, that's the only biggest problem we have at the village level.
And listening to Allison and Mike, they're looking to see where they're gonna come out year end,
Yeah.
you know, with everything, which makes sense, you know, that we'd be able to apply, you know, their funding. Thanks, I really appreciate the involvement, and we're on as fast of a timeline as we can be, but we wanna do it right. So we're gonna look at a few more job descriptions and make sure the salary ranges are in the hopper and.
So you don't need an official motion, is that
No.
correct?
And like,
All right. Okay, we'll move on to action items. K1, Lamers extended contract. Keith?
Every year we come forward with the Lamers contract extension. As a quick review, we have a 6-year rolling contract, but we settle the rates on a year-to-year basis. Lamers has been very accommodating over the years. When we had reductions from the state, they took very small or low increases. What they're experiencing right now are significant increases in their staffing costs, hiring of bus drivers. When unemployment rates get low, there's less for them to hire, so their costs are going up significantly. And they're also having a hard time with mechanics and maintenance people as well. So I think it's very fair of them to agree to a 2.5% rate increase and then reducing the fuel chart by $1 makes it basically a net 2% increase for us overall. That's the gross contract. If we're able, or when we're able to save bus routes, we reduce the contract on top of that. So if and when we can save a bus route, we do that, and they are very proactive in working with us to try and do that as well. Their service level is excellent. I've mentioned to some of you, you've heard this before, previous district I worked in, we had bus service issues on a regular basis. I just don't have them. The communication's great, their service focus, they take care of our kids no matter what the weather is. So I think it's a great relationship, and we're their first customer, and we should continue to work with them. I think it's a fair contract offer.
You know, I don't disagree that service is great. I don't understand what the fuel chart, can you
Okay.
explain that a little bit?
Yeah, it's called a fuel escalator clause. So basically, so they're not left holding the bag when fuel jumps up $1 a gallon, $2 a gallon. There's a clause in there that it's a table that as fuel prices change, there's a fuel escalator adjustment. So we're knocking a step off of that, so we're adjusting that down each time, because that fuel escalator clause was started in the 70s or 80s, and we're pretty high up on that chart, so now we're trying to shift it back down and adjust it to be more towards what our normal fuel prices are. And in the last year and a half, we've had very good fuel prices, and we've had a pretty nice positive variance in transportation because of that, because I'm not budgeting for best case fuel costs, I'm budgeting for expected or a little worse than that. So just to be careful, because you never know when you're going to get that 50-cent or $1 jump in fuel costs. So that's what that is. That's just an adjustment to protect them so they're not holding the bag if fuel prices change.
All right, any questions? We've been doing this every year for
Yeah.
forever, and it is a very good working relationship we have with Lamers. I'm sure most of you have had experiences with them, and they're second to none.
One other story I'll share with you from Lamers, that on the west side of the state, they've had problems with busing companies going out of business because they can't find bus drivers, or just dropping school districts because they can't find bus drivers. So it is an interesting market where Lamers has been asked across the state to pick up some additional contracts at the last minute, and in talking with them, they basically said, yeah, the contractor just said, I can't get enough bus routes for you to a district, and said, okay, we're not going to do your busing, and told them that in July because they couldn't find enough drivers. So we don't have that problem, and one of the reasons we don't is because we have a good contract with Lamers where we're working together, and the longer-term contract allows them to invest in their equipment and invest in their people.
Do we get funded on this at all federally?
We get, not federally, we get some state money through transportation aid, but geographically we're so small, and the state aid is based on miles from school, so we don't have anybody over 5 miles from school that lives in our district, so we get some aid, but it's not significant. I believe it's like 25 or 30,000 a year that we get. But also, our busing costs per student are less than a larger geographic district. So I'm not saying we're getting ripped off here. We're better than most as far as our busing costs per student.
So the only comment I want to make about it is I'd love to have a contract where I'm getting guaranteed 2 to 2.5% a year like that every year as a business, because it doesn't happen in all of them. So
Right. And I can share the information with you that Lamer shared with us on their increasing costs for equipment and staff and all those things. I don't give you guys all that detail. Kevin Lamers gives me a nice thick packet that I could share. If somebody has questions, I'd be happy to share with you. I just assume you don't want to have 20 pages on bus contracts that you want to review or justification, but I believe in this case it's justified. And when I think back to 2008 and 9, when our budget really got squeezed with no revenue limit increase, they took less than 1% or took a freeze one year. Even after we'd already negotiated a 1.5%, they came back that year and gave us a freeze because they saw what was happening. And at the same time, their staffing costs were going down because of the unemployment rate had spiked, so they didn't have to jump in as much as they have here to try and keep staffing. So I think they've been very fair all along.
All right, can we get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Lamer's bus contract as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and second. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Okay, K2, dance team trip. Nick?
Sure. I'll talk for a brief moment before I turn it over to Rodney and Drew and the contingent parents and dancers here. The dance team is obviously here because they're looking for permission to go to Florida this next spring. The challenge with that is the competition they want to be in involves some school days. And that requires board approval to get to leave school for that number of days for a trip. Obviously, I forwarded the information to the board. They have that. It's got a lot of pros. These trips do. The concern is that they're missing some school. They did a nice job, Rodney and Drew, getting support from their parents as far as they're aware that their kids are missing school and they're responsible for that. But ultimately, that's our concern. As I stated as well, though, it's got some really good benefits to be in competitions or have these experiences. So I'm going to turn it over to Rodney and Drew so they can give a little bit more information about it. They provided an itinerary for you to look at, what their plans are. And then if you have any questions for me, I can certainly step in, or for Brian as well. So go ahead, guys.
All right. I'm not sure exactly what he all sent to you, but Rodney and I did come up with a large amount of points that we thought were reasons why it was beneficial to our girls. So we printed those out, if you want to hand those out.
There's 35, so...
Yeah, there's 35, so I don't...
But you couldn't let us...
No.
Is that all you could come up with?
Yeah. Get the 40.
I'm not making it too good.
But with coming up with those points, Rodney and I thought it was beneficial not only to seek out our own points, but to look for points from both our current parents that have gone to nationals with us before to this Florida trip, current dancers that went 4 years or 3 years ago when they were freshmen, and then also former dancers and also a dancer that did not get to go before we started coaching. So we had quite a few different letters written. That's where we came up with many of these points. I didn't want to print off this. We thought it would be better to just make it into something easier to read. So there's probably about 10 or so different letters that we collected before we went to Nick and presented our information before coming to you.
We got all that.
What was that?
Yeah, we got all that.
You have all that.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
I have the letters if you want us to forward those on. We have those too. But do you think we should go through those points? Well, if they have that, you have these, right?
Yeah, we got all that.
You got all Well, then those already.
We won't
read those to you verbatim. But I think the big thing is that we're asking for a couple more days than we went last time. The last time that we went, the girls were really rushed. For example, we had dinner reservations at midnight one night because that's the earliest we could get out of the competition. We actually ended up having to sneak our team out of the arena because it wasn't done yet, so that we could make it to some of the places that the girls wanted to go while we were down there. So that's one of the reasons for the extra days, is that it felt very rushed. By the time we got to competing, the girls weren't in the greatest of moods. They were tired from being carted here and there. So we're trying to alleviate some of the stress of traveling, trying to fit in the stuff that they want to get done down there, and then also competing. So we're trying to make the trip run a little bit smoother. And just going on to the timeline we had last year, we got there on Wednesday. We went to the parks that day. We had competition days that we were going back and forth between parks and the competition, just because you're allowed 3 days to go to the parks within the package of this national competition, and we were trying to jam-pack everything in, and the girls, by the time we got done, they were completely exhausted, and I think those were some of the points that were in the document we just handed out to you, was that all the alumni that said that if they would change something, that it would be just a little bit of time to breathe and relax and take in the experience rather than just being here, 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 here the entire time that they were there.
Questions? Can you guys talk a little bit about the costs?
Yeah, for sure. I actually, Nick asked me last week what the cost per dancer would be. When you put everything together, is close to $22,000, which is about $1,400 per dancer, not including the coaches' fees. With that being said, it sounds like a large amount, but our parents would attest to the amount of fundraising and the work they put in throughout the year, that we're happy to say that the girls wouldn't have to pay for a single penny of that if everything runs as planned throughout the year. So all the travel, including the flights, the trip down to Milwaukee for that flight, the competition fees, the meal packages, and all of the competition fees included would be paid for, and they wouldn't have to pay anything for that.
I can just add into that dance doesn't really get any, they don't get any financial assistance from my activity or athletic budget, so they're self-sufficient. The only thing that we pay for dance is their is coaching stipends. Other than that, their fundraising is what pays for their uniforms, their makeup, and all that. And with this trip, I don't think they're not taking on any. The thought is, well, they're going to be doing more fundraising. I don't think they're going to be doing any more than they typically do that they haven't done in the past. So, if there's a concern about fundraising, it's going to be the same as what they've done in the past. And the big thing is a booyah, some car washes, and then their dance invite is where they raise a ton of their money. So it's not like they're going out and banging on doors selling stuff. So.
And I guess that's kind of been the goal of our program over the past 7 years or 6 years. This is our 7th year coaching. Is when we started, we had maybe a carryover of $2,000, and now we have a carryover that pretty much pays for a season ahead of time, because we wanted to be able to do these things and give the girls the opportunities to go on bigger national event competitions like this and get that experience, get the opportunities, get the benefits that you can reap from a school district as well as a team from going to an event like this.
So how many performances will the girls have?
They will have 4 team performances, as well as a combination routine with other teams in the state. When we went last year, us in Watertown started 3 years ago. Us in Watertown High School, we decided to combine our teams together. We went down to Watertown a couple days and we learned a routine with them. And then we took it to nationals, and we actually became national champions with that routine with them. So we're going to do that again, but this year we're thinking about maybe opening up the door and adding in more teams and kind of making the best of the best type team and competing with that. So that would be the 5th routine. And then if any of the dancers wanted to do solos, duets, small groups, those would be just additional costs that they could do.
So Nick, are there any special testing going on during this time frame? Is that
No,
midterm?
there's no ACT or Aspire testing on those dates. So
And when does spring break fall this school year?
I think it's the last week of March.
Last week, so there's a couple week gap before spring break would occur.
Correct.
And after they're back.
Correct. So they wouldn't be missing right at the end of a term.
Yeah,
I think they're
that's what I was-
they'd be in the middle of a term, and
Who's going this year? The band or chorus?
Band and choir are doing it combined.
they're going in.
But it's in June, it's after the school year.
When school is out, yeah.
Okay.
If I could just add too, is Rodney and Drew and this parent group, and the parent groups under their leadership, have really been outstanding. And their big fundraiser that they allude to in terms of their dance competition that they host every year really has become a gem statewide. And so, how many teams do we have there this year? Was it 100 and?
We had 86 this year, which is completely capacity. I don't think we could go any bigger based off of the size of our school and rooming that.
But it's a real partnership with the parents, and they're a hardworking group that support their daughters, and it's a trip that they rotate through and take every 3 years. And in talking with Drew, the parents understand, support, and know that the school work is their daughter's responsibility. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, that they work hard. They start in August or June and go through the end of March. They're committed, not only in their competition season, but football, basketball, soccer, and it's a great group of kids. And I know that they'll take their studies very seriously. They're providing an opportunity to take this trip with the understanding that it's not going to be every year, that there's going to be a rotation, and that unfortunately this year it just doesn't match up with spring break either. So,
And there is I'll just touch a little bit on that. We check these kids' grades, the girls' grades, just like any of our other teams, football, basketball. Their grades are checked at the terms, and if there's kids that are need academic support or some assistance, we get them that, number one. But they know they're going to be held accountable if they have a failing grade or if their GPA is too low, that they'd be sitting some dance competitions or some dance events. So they're aware of that. They know that. And they know that if something like this is approved, that boy, oh boy, I wouldn't want to at the end of term 2 have a failing grade, because those 15 days might lead right into this trip where they wouldn't be able to dance. So they know that as well. The reason they could qualify for this, there's 2 ways to get there, right? You can either qualify for it.
Well, there's another competition that you qualify for, but it's on our state.
It's not during, there's another
it's on our
competition
state
where you can
competition
actually
weekend.
qualify for this, right?
Mhm.
But it's during our state competition, so it's not like, the question is, well, is this something you qualify for? Well, they could go that route, but they also go to our state meet where they dance for a title there as well, so. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing just to point out is that you said you've been with the program for 7 years now. That's amazing. I can't believe it's been that long. 'Cause I think I was familiar with the dance program probably 3 or 4 years prior to that with the Jaguar Bapters. And every year, the best parent group is the dance team. And I see it again here tonight. So thank you for all the hard work you put in. And I'm sure your daughters appreciate it. Right, girls?
That wasn't forced at all.
Sorry to swallow hard.
I guess one other thing that kind of came to my mind when Brian was talking about academics is last year our team did receive an academic achievement award at the national competition, and in Minnesota last year, and it's just one of those things. We hold high priority on our team that their grades stay up. We've held our own grade checks on our girls just to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be. So it's a high priority. Last year we had them have a mandatory study session during nationals, which we plan to do probably on multiple occasions since it's a longer trip this time, if we're allowed to go. But they love those.
Now, was the last trip, was that 3 years ago, or would it be 4 years between?
It would be 3.
3 years between. It would go Florida off, and then Minnesota, Florida off, Minnesota.
So it would be every 3 years?
Yes.
Every 3 years is Florida.
So the only concern that I have is, number one, letting you guys out of school for 5 days.
Mhm.
And that's big, because it's going to lead to other groups wanting to do the same thing. And that's something that we have to consider, because of that fact that, you know, we let the dance team do this well, and now the soccer program is going to want to come in the middle of the school year, or whatever program it's going to be. And I think that's the only thing that I'm totally for this trip. I think it's great, but that's the one thing I just kind of have a hard time with, is not only just letting you guys go, what's going to happen in 2 years when some other group comes. That's what we have to consider.
I think with most of our athletic teams, we steer them to the spring break. If it's not on spring break, you're not going. And sometimes that's a challenge, especially with baseball, because of their start date, and a spring break that's at the end of March always doesn't allow competition for some of those sports. And those times I just say that's tough. You know, softball's been fortunate where our spring break is they've been able to play games on their spring break, so they've been able to go and do that. But those groups, they can find games on their spring break, most likely. This group can't find the competition on our scheduled spring break. So that's a little bit of a difference. You know, our skills kids, some of our skills USA or DECA kids go to competitions where they're missing some school. So if you're looking at a comparable that way, I think DECA was gone, 5 kids were gone 4 or 5 days. Skills was gone on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So there are some comparables as far as missing school. And that's a point to consider as well.
And we did.
I could swear there's more than 15 kids out there dancing every time that I see them all.
We're very small this year.
They're just moving really fast.
Last year we had more, but this year we're a little bit smaller.
We decided to go for more quality this year, try to increase that rather than quantity.
Okay, then I wasn't dreaming.
You probably came on one of those kiddie clinics.
Yeah, we have 130 out there.
That's a lot of work.
You talk about the parents and the coaches, and I think many of you have been at that kiddie clinic when we have over 100 little kids out there having fun in a pizza party and their moms, and it really kind of warms your heart to see it. And but the program really continues to grow and be a positive, and it's a credit to Rodney and Drew. They do a great job. But then Brian alluded to it too, these parents. And if you ever have time to pop over in spring and check out that competition, and
it's the biggest indication.
It's really a neat deal. That field house is not an open seat, and I would compare it to a sectional final. And I'm not exaggerating. It's really become a premier event. So.
And one other comment I'd just make is that I appreciate the fact that they're competing, I think you said 5 times, and then several will do multiple additional to that. I know when you compare to some of the other trips that we've seen come before us, whether it be a band trip where they do one performance and then go to the parks for 4 days, or that type of thing. I'm sure the girls will be fully engulfed in that national event and constantly watching and learning from other competitors. So, I have no problem.
One other group, like you said, the band, and in 2015, their trip was 4 days long. So going another day is not really a stretch. And that was How many kids are in band that went on that trip?
Hundreds.
How many?
Like 150.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know how many kids get up at 6 o'clock every day of the summer to go to practice. These girls have been 5 days a week in June, 6 a.m., and 3 days a week in July, and 5 days a week in August, from the day school left out until the day school starts. So, I mean, these are girls that are committing a lot of seasons to this as well, versus baseball or basketball. I mean, you might have some kids that do multiple sports, but these girls are going from June 1st or June 8th, whenever we got out of school, until March when we hit nationals. So, and they don't have down days. They are at practice 5 days a week from June until March. So, I mean, I think they also deserve, an opportunity to really show off what they're doing.
My way, and Rodney and Drew have done an awesome job, no question about it, the last 7 years now. I didn't realize it was 7. I personally experienced an unbelievable car wash 2 years ago, so I can attest to it.
Car's still shiny?
Car's still shiny. No, what Mr. Nelson said, I think, is really, in my mind, just being fair and comparable through an administrator's eyes with all the trips that we have. And then if any of the girls are involved in band, choir, or Spanish, or fill in the gap, and those trips are in there and they're involved, I think the rotation is the right way to do this. I totally support that type of a life experience. You won't forget it. It's going to be imprinted on you. But I hope if the board decides to do this, I would suggest you do it in a rotating manner so that you don't burn the parents out. And we're also getting more and more cognizant of more and more families that just don't have a real high income. That's increasing, and that's increasing in a circle drawn around all of Green Bay. It's not just us. But with that comes that extra pressure. $1,400 for some people maybe doesn't seem like a lot of money over 2-3 years. For a different family, that is a lot of money. And we don't want students to not be able to compete because of X. Of course not. That's not what we're all about. So that's my way in, but congratulations on all the hard work and all the hours and throughout the summer. And it's hard to keep up with everything that you guys are doing, frankly. A lot of pride there, but I certainly would endorse it on a rotational type of a schedule for all those reasons. And that's not being disrespectful to it. Obviously, we'd probably want to do this every year if we could do that. But that's my way in.
No.
Dr. Hayes, there are schools that, the surrounding schools that do it every year.
That's what I understand. Southwest does it every year, and Howard's.
And they don't fundraise. That money comes out of the parents' pockets, and just to add to the fundraising, we're not out there selling products, for our community to buy. Our girls are working, and they even give back to the community, like the golf outing, the Jaguar Backer. The girls do it for nothing, They also do community events. They've done Sweet Street, for Halloween. We were at Ashwaubenon last year, the blast. So, but everything else, they're actually working, at the Packer games, the car washes. Last weekend, we did brand new one, the soccer for the Ashwaubenon Park and Rec Soccer League for the little kids. They had their first ever soccer tournament for 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11-year-olds at Cornerstone, and the dance team did the soccer concessions for the first time, and we had to go back and get food 3 times. And we saw a lot of comments come back that it was very well run. So, and we worked all day, and some of us worked more. But to that point, we're not trying to burn out parents. A lot of it's volunteer. It's not all mandatory. We try and be as flexible as we can. Because we understand that each family is at a different point. Whether some have younger children, some are becoming empty nesters and may have more time. Work schedules play into it. So girls have jobs, so we juggle all of that, and we still are able to make it work.
I would say the impact that they're having on the community. When you look at all that, it's a family thing, and it's a community. Everybody's together doing that. And I said the 5 days of school, I agree with what you're saying, Brian. I mean, if you look at over a 3-year span, that means there's only 5 days of school over 3 years. It's not like you're missing
5 days each year or something, that would be a little different probably. But I can attest just from, I have a neighbor that is on the dance team, and I feel like they're always going to that fundraiser, the Packer game, the soccer. I'm like, what are you doing? You know, I mean, they're over the lawn at like 9:30 last night because, you know, they just got back from all their stuff they're doing. I'm like, and they're up at, I'm walking the dog at 5:45 in the morning, and they're out there leaving for dance practice. I'm like, okay, all right. That's pretty cool.
Well, I just think, you know, being on the Jaguar Backers and kind of seeing you guys over the years, you know, it'd be hard to find a harder working, you know, group than the coaches here and the parents. You know, it's just completely outstanding. And, you know, the kids, it's hard to say no because, you know, hardworking, talented, you know, smart individuals that I'm sure will, you know, do, you know, very well. Not in the, you know, just because you miss 5 days of school, you're going to handle that, but, you know, really for the rest of your life, you're going to remember all this, you know, going on.
All right. Anything else?
Need a motion?
Yes.
To approve it? I'll make a motion to approve the dance team trip as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Whether worth the wait, you can stay longer.
Actually, the parents can all leave, but the girls have to leave.
There actually would be one more thing, though, that I think we have to, because I'm a teacher in the district. So I think with that, last year, the last time we went, I was accepted, but I was a long-term substitute teacher in the district. So I guess I would be asking if I would be granted the extra time rather than my 2 personal days. And I think Chris and Brian have talked about this and maybe have a suggestion.
Yeah, and with that recommendation, now knowing where the board stands, we'll work that out.
Okay.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
Parkview.
You're at Parkview. Okay,
Oh,
you were at
congrats.
Pioneer.
He loves it. Yes, I love it. Thank you again.
Yep.
Thank you. No, they're not. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like the more things you do, you know, the better. You know, I mean.
Okay, we'll move on to K4. Tammy, special education van.
The special education van, as I talked about at the last board meeting, the third van that I plan to replace next summer, the door had fallen off, so I got bids to replace it yet this summer before school starts. And what I'm looking at, instead of replacing it with a full-size extended van like I had with the other 2 vans, we are looking at saving some money and getting a minivan. And I put bids out. 3 different dealerships gave me prices. The one that I decided was the most practical and best deal for the district would be purchasing a used 2015 Kia Sedona for $19,353.50. It would have 24,000 miles. It gets better gas mileage, and it still has a warranty for 3 years or 36,000 miles.
And again, this is paid through IDEA grant, so there's not money for
Correct.
the
It
district,
would be
correct?
paid through my IDEA grant.
Could we get a deal on trading it?
The trade-in I'm going to be doing outright. They were going to give me just $1,000 to trade it in, and I said rather than that, I'd rather put a for sale sign on it. And there are a few places in the community that might be interested, otherwise I'm going to put that on Craigslist as well.
Even with the door falling?
Is that extra?
You know, if I duct tape it shut, I don't get jumped, so it'll be
It's a
good.
feature, not a problem.
Yeah.
That's right, it's a listed feature.
It's a removable door, it's a feature.
Just like a Jeep, it's just like a Jeep.
Yeah. A little extra air conditioning.
All right, we have a motion on this?
I'll move to approve the purchase of the van, special education van, as presented.
Second? Brian? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
What other one?
The new van that we have out parking lot?
No, we don't want to talk about
the new van in the parking lot is the one if you noticed when you walked in, there's an extended van out there. It's white. That is the one we purchased after the last board meeting. It was delivered this afternoon.
Very
So if
slick.
you want to look at that one when you go out, that one will be at the high school.
I think Keith is giving tours at Elkhart Lake tomorrow, right?
There you go.
Let's see how fast it can go.
I'll talk to you later about something. Very minor, but.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to move to now J1, annual seclusions and restraints report. Tammy?
In your board packet, I included the seclusion and restraint information from 2015-2016 school year. This is information that has to be provided to the board annually so that you are aware of how often students are secluded or restrained. What I did with the report is I also this year broke it down, comparing it to the 2013-14 school year to show you, since we've been doing more staff training and put other procedures in place, what the difference is. Compared to the 2013-14 school year, we had 104 total incidents that year. This past year, we only had 71 incidents. We had 13 students that needed to be secluded or restrained during the 13-14 school year. This year we had more students, but as you see, there are fewer incidents, which is what we want to see. So hopefully, if a student has interventions put in place, there aren't as many repeating incidents that we have. Restraint only, we had to restrain 4 students in the 13-14 school year. Restraint only this past year was 2. Seclusion only, we had 74 a few years ago, and this year we had 49. And then restraint and seclusion went from 26 students down to 20 students.
Can you talk about the training that your teachers have got to go through too?
I can. We provide crisis prevention intervention every year for training. We have that coming up in 2 weeks, where we take special ed staff through a 4-hour training where we talk about primarily focusing on de-escalating students, so we don't need to seclude or restrain students. And then we also spend part of the time teaching them how to safely restrain a student if they need to be restrained. We also have a training this summer that's being offered. I'm teaching that on Thursday for about 20 regular ed students, or 20 regular ed teachers, that talks about how to diffuse difficult conversations with students and with parents as well. So we're trying to get more interventions in place for regular ed staff to have more tools that they can use as well with students and with parents. So hopefully they learn some strategies so we don't get to the point of having to seclude or restrain students.
Notice that in your report that most of them are young.
Most of the time it is younger students who have a difficult time communicating sometimes, or younger students that just haven't learned that self-control that comes with maturity. At the middle school and high school, we have very few situations where we actually restrain a student. We have more seclusion situations there, but the belief is at the middle school and high school, the kids are old enough to make good decisions. If they need to escape a situation, we let them do that, and then we put things in place, so we follow them or we contact public safety or parents. So we try not to seclude or restrain as much at those levels. It typically is the younger kids, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and those elementary students.
I think you would see that at the elementary level, that most of them happen in first and second grade as compared to 4th and 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole modeling piece and kind of helping them through that process.
40% of them at Cormier School, it's like, okay, it makes sense why I have to do it. So.
Is this a 2-year span?
Yes.
For each block?
I had the report each year. I just compared it. This is my 3rd year as director giving the report, so I compared it to my 1st year as director compared to this year, just to give you an idea of where we've come.
How does it compare with other schools, I guess? Do you know?
That's a very interesting question. Seclusion and restraint, we struggle in our district. Obviously, we know what restraint looks like. Anytime you put your hands on a student, you're restraining a student. Seclusion is a real questionable definition throughout the state because what one building in our district, for example, might consider seclusion, another building might not. So we've worked as a district on what our definition of seclusion looks like. Throughout the state, there are many different definitions of that. In some districts, anytime you remove a student from the classroom, some districts consider that seclusion. Other districts consider seclusion only when you have a student in a room and you aren't letting them leave that room. Some districts consider seclusion to be in-school suspension, which is still a little different because you aren't keeping them there because of their immediate behavior that is a risk to themselves or others. So compared to other districts, it's really a hard comparison right now. The state is working on trying to come up with more of a common definition of that so we have better accurate information. But every year, sometime around August, September, the state comes out with a report or they request information from us and put together a report that shows it, but you'll see varying differences between districts, among districts, just because of the difference in the definition.
So the younger, it's mostly the younger grades, so what are we doing for seclusion? What is it when they are removed from a classroom, or is it when they're taken to another place and put in a room by themselves? What is our definition?
So I'd say our definition is when we're keeping them where they're not allowed to leave from that room.
Because of their behavior. So there are times we do remove a student, a special ed teacher may go into a classroom and say, hey, Frankie, you need to take a break. Let's go take a walk. We don't consider that seclusion where some districts might consider it that. That to us is an intervention that if we can take a walk with a student or give the student a break card to go to the office and come back, that isn't seclusion. We're helping them de-escalate. We're working through that so they don't get to the point where they're physically out of control.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay. Board and Superintendent Communications. I don't either. Just like to mention again the Ashwaubenon Blast, which is next Saturday, correct?
This Saturday.
This Saturday. It's already this Saturday.
Better be this Saturday.
What's the times on that?
Weather looks good. 2 to 10. 2 o'clock in the afternoon it starts. 3 o'clock kids games, and Jaguar backers are going to be there selling like a banshee. Mr. Singers is going to be frying up burgers.
Great. Anything else? Okay. Future board meetings and topics. The next meeting is scheduled for Monday, September 12th, 6:30 at the Village Community Center. Not here at the district office, the Village Community Center. And we need a motion to adjourn to exec session.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mandy Creek, aye.
Anderson, aye.
What type of details?